The other day, Andreas Kling, the legend behind the Serenity OS and the Ladybird web browser, made a post regarding some of the kind of the political and somewhat violent and vulgar rhetoric that happens at tech conferences, at open source and otherwise tech conferences. And, that kind of just brought up a lot of memories about how much violent extremism and encouraging of violence that we've seen at these open source Linux and other types of tech conferences over the last several years. So I want to talk to you some about all of that. First, I want to read you this post from Andreas because it was a good one. My apologies. There's a couple of naughty words on here because Andreas is quoting people, and he doesn't censor himself quite as much as I do. All right, quote. In recent years, Andreas says, I've attended multiple software conference talks that had unrelated extreme political rhetoric in slides, such as beep this person and punch this group. Whenever this happened, some of the audience would clap and cheer, and I'd roll my eyes, and the talk would get back on topic. Fast forward to today and look at how many people in our industry are openly celebrating the murder of someone they decided was a Nazi and a fascist. It turns out these people were more serious than I thought. As someone who's repeatedly been called a Nazi and a fascist myself for disagreements with far left ideology, I know how easily those labels get thrown around. And honestly, this is making me seriously reconsider which conferences I attend. There's a hateful rot within our industry. It should not be socially acceptable to cheer for murder. We need to do more than roll our eyes. Beautifully put, Andreas. And so I responded to that, and I want to read what I responded with, and then I have some other things I want to say as well. This is me posting over on X. At this point, I don't speak at or even attend tech conferences. Too many death threats encouraged by conference speakers. It's just not worth the risk. In fact, there have been instances where conference organizers themselves were involved in threatening me personally with violence if I attend. Looking at you, Seagull. The CGL conference is a free and open source software conference in Seattle, Washington. And one year they heard I was going to attend, and they threatened basically to hire people to hurt me and then remove me from the conference if I show up because they disagreed with my politics. That's all. I wasn't even scheduled to speak there. I was just going to show up to support a friend. Jerks. I continue. This has been going on for years. I recall a 2018 keynote at an O'Reilly Media OzCon event where Scott Hanselman, a vice president at Microsoft and one of the conference organizers, I believe he was a co-chair that year, encouraged attendees to be, quote, willing to commit crimes against white men. That people should be willing to go to jail. A direct quote, willing to go to jail. He even had a slide encouraging people to become accomplices. And I actually have a picture of that here. That little head you see over on the left side, that's Scott Hanselman. And then you see his slide up there. And it says, to create an inclusive tech environment, we need accomplices more than allies. And then he was talking about how we need to be willing to go to jail and commit crimes against white men and white straight men in particular in order to have a good world. You needed to attack. The insinuation was murder, but he didn't say murder. He just said commit crimes against white men and be willing to go to jail for life because of those crimes against white men. And I don't know what jail you go to for life for anything other than lots of murder, right? So I assume he was talking about murder. Now, when I raised an objection to calling for encouraging violence, that Microsoft executive pulled up a picture of me on his phone and spent multiple days showing people at the conference what I looked like. To be on the lookout for me and that I was dangerous. He literally pulled up on his phone a picture of me. He wandered the convention hall, the expo floor, going to conferences. He went to the press room. I heard about this from probably a dozen people. He did this over the course of several days. And he's like, look, be on the lookout for this man. This is Lunduke, and he's very dangerous. Don't listen to anything he says, and he's dangerous. Excuse me. He was very adamant, and he was trying to whip people up into a frenzy, assumedly to attack me. Now, this all, again, came on the heels of him making a presentation to encourage people to commit crimes and become accomplices in the committing of crimes against people who are the wrong kind of people. White straight men like me, conservatives like me, etc. And when I complained to conference organizers that he was trying to encourage violence, he then went around the whole conference and attempted to encourage people to commit violent acts against me. I mean, all in context, it was very clear his goal was attack Lunduke physically. Now, every single person organizing that conference and all of the sub-conferences that were occurring at the same time supported his actions and his calls for violence. Every single one. And some of them were people that I had a pretty high opinion of going into those moments. But they heard about it and they're like, no, it's fine. I'm sure Scott Hanselman is being nice when he's calling for people to murder white guys. That's fine. Microsoft rewarded him with a promotion. He's currently a vice president over at Microsoft over their open source organization. And it's amazing how many events like this occur and how much violence goes on relating to this. Many in the past, I've been scheduled to go to various conferences. And when the schedules get released and they're like, okay, Lunduke's going to be keynoting at this conference, inevitably there would be protests, right? There would be a boycott formed and whatnot. And almost every time the threats turned violent. Prominent individuals within the world of open source would send emails where they would threaten physical violence if I were to show up and be in an event. So some events just say, okay, we can't have Lunduke. Some events are brave and are like, we'll put Lunduke in it anyway. Other events have canceled completely. I've literally had events where I made proposals to them where they were going to hold an event. There was going to be an Ubuntu event in Texas like 2 years ago. And I made a proposal to them. I'm like, hey, you know what? What if I, dust off a couple of my Linux history speeches that I give and whatnot and come there? Just the act of me proposing those speeches caused the event to almost completely disintegrate and just fall apart entirely. They ended up canceling almost all of the days. They canceled almost everything and just folded because so much infighting occurred internally just because I proposed going to the event, and they were worried that I would show up. This last March, the Futo developers, FUTO, invited me to an event at South by Southwest in Austin, Texas. And they wanted me to come speak. And I said, yeah, that sounds great. I could, I'll drive on over there. Only take me a big long day drive, and I'll get to Austin, Texas, and we'll come hang out, and I'll give a speech. And so they put me on the schedule. Here, I think I've got a picture of it right here. They've got a picture of me. It was the Futo Don't Be Evil Rebel Tech Summit, and they've got a little picture, picture of me with my stupid grin, looking at the camera. And I was gonna speak there, and people caught word of that, and so I started getting threatening emails. Not a little threatening, a lot threatening. To the point where people went to the building where this event was going to be taking place, took pictures of it, showed me how they knew where the windows were. They knew where the line of sights would probably be. They knew the exact times I would be there. And they made it very clear that they were going to kill me if I showed up. this specific place, this specific time. Watch your back, Lunduke. We're going to get you, Lunduke, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They called me fascist. They specifically attacked me for being both conservative and for being Jewish. We contacted the police. The FUTO organizers hired a bunch of security to try and protect people. But ultimately, it was decided that, if I went, I would be putting other people in danger, not just myself, right? If I'm publicly just not going to be there, then there's less reason for a shooter to go to that event. And so I pulled out. I'm like I can't be responsible for someone else getting hurt. And realistically, I wasn't even giving some crazy amazing speech. It was going to be a fun speech about what was it? It was like the taking back of open source as a phrase, and it was a fun speech. It was going to be an hour of me ranting and raving, which is always a good time, and I love hanging out with like-minded nerds, and I love getting heckled by the nerds. I love live speaking, but it wasn't worth risking my life, and it really wasn't worth risking anyone else's life for me to go there. And this is just an ongoing thing. This stuff is happening constantly. It's been happening for years, and a lot of people wrote it off. Like what Andreas was saying, a lot of people just rolled their eyes and said, "Oh yeah, whatever. They're just talking up a big game, and they're pandering with their F this group and punch a Nazi and blah 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 blah." Yay! I have pink shaved hair. I love this punch a Nazi thing. But it turns out it was real. A lot of these people really do believe that, you should murder people who are Nazis. I'm using air quotes here, and fascists. And who are Nazis and fascists? Well, I am. Andreas Kling is. According to these people, we're both me and Andreas and so many others are Nazis and fascists. Does it matter that I'm not a Nazi and a fascist? No. Does it matter that I'm a Jew whose family was impacted by Nazis? No, it does not matter to these people. I'm not of the same political ideology as to them. Therefore, I must be physically assaulted. I must be banned. I must be attacked. I must be disparaged. I must be murdered. That's what it is like at tech conferences now. So I don't go right now. I've made a decision. I just won't go for a while. And I'd love to at one point, if some semblance of sanity, it's a lot of alliteration, it gets restored, and tech conferences can be attended once again, I'd love to go. But even tech conferences where the organizers and attendees are all politically aligned with me, it becomes still not safe. Like with the like with the FUTO conference. The organizers liked what I was doing. We were getting along. It was great. It's people out there in the world seeing that it's happening who weren't even planning to attend, who are like, great, a chance to not only kill this random political tech figure, this random conservative guy, but at the same time get on the news and get cheered on by more blue-haired people. I mean, I can't do that. I can't put my family through that. I can't put others in danger like that. I just can't do it. So there's no way to go to a tech conference, conservative or otherwise. It can be literally a conference called Nothing But Conservative Nerds, right? But unless the security is phenomenal, I mean, like background checks on every attendee, metal detectors at every door, absolutely no windows available, armored transport to and from the venue. Like, unless we go crazy on the security, like stupid crazy, but it's not worth it. And the people that have been encouraging it are, in large part, the organizers. For most of these conferences, the tech executives, the founders of open source projects. I mean, the GNOME Foundation has been pushing these extreme violent rhetoric for quite some time now. Multiple Linux distributions push this sort of crazy, let's kill people propaganda constantly. Organizers of conferences, from OzCon to the big OzCons and the big events to just these little tiny events, they push it as well. And like Andreas pointed out, it's very rare that you could go to, over the last several years, more than 2 or 3 tech conference presentations and not have at least a handful of slides pop up where they're like, F this guy and punch Nazis and yeah. And then all the people with the shaved side of their heads, but the blue on the top that go by they, them, their, zim pronouns, which you see in that picture. They go, yay, because they're true believers. They believe that people like me, like you probably, should die. And we saw that. And now with the murder of Charlie Kirk, I think people are really starting to take it seriously. It's incredibly sad that something that devastatingly awful had to happen before a lot of people really started taking this seriously. But at least people are taking it seriously now. This is an important topic to discuss. It truly is. But for now, it's going to have to be discussed behind the camera. It's not safe for me to be at a public event. It's not safe for a lot of conservative speakers to be at a public event right now, especially those who are a little more lightning roddy within their industry. You can't do it. It's just not safe. And I think this needs to be very clear because I think for a lot of people, what I'm about to say goes without saying. It's obvious, but other people will try and parrot the idea that there are problems on both sides, but there's not. There's absolutely not. I have not heard of a single instance, not one, where right-leaning conservative conference organizers are specifically advocating for committing crimes against people who vote for Democrats, or who are black, or who are lesbians, or who are women, or whoever, or trans people. That doesn't happen. You may hear conservative people disagree with people, but I have never been to a conference where I've seen the organizers or the keynote speakers ranting and raving with slides about F these leftists and whatnot. That doesn't happen. The violence is all on one side, all of it, not most, all, every drop of it. When it comes to tech conferences, there's only one group advocating for the violence, and it's all those who are clustered together on the leftist extremists. That's it, and that's all. So this is not a both sides sort of issue. This is not a, oh, why are both sides politicizing thing? Both sides are not. You'll notice if it were not for, I'm not here doing shows about how I disagree with leftist politics. Notice that I'm doing shows about how I am concerned and scared because the extreme leftists are advocating for murder. And that's what I'm objecting to. The Lunduke Journal is not here to tell people how to vote. I'm not here to tell people to be a Democrat or a Republican or a Green or a Libertarian I don't care. I don't care. Not my job, not my expertise. But when these leftists, when these tech organizations, these tech foundations, these big tech companies are regularly not just injecting politics, but threatening safety of people if they don't agree wholeheartedly lockstep with those leftist politics, now they've got a real problem. Now they made Lunduke mad. Now they've made it so we have to talk about this. So I'm not here injecting politics into anything. I'm simply responding to extreme violence and rhetoric and advocating for violence coming from one particular group. It needs to stop. And if all of the people, I mean, every single one of them who's ever said anything like F the Nazis, and I'm not talking about real Nazis here. If you don't like Nazis, fine. But I'm talking about, punch a Nazi, F fascist, the people with the blue hairs and the pronouns and whatnot. If they all just need to be fired from all their jobs and blacklisted from the industry, fine. Because what they're doing is awful. They're destroying the entire tech industry. They're destroying the society around tech industry. And they're harming the technical quality and engineering quality of everything related to computing along with it. They need to be out. They need to stop right now. And I find it absolutely appalling, the people who don't speak up about this. The people who have been to the conferences and seen exactly what I'm talking about and just let it happen, I find that disgusting. And a lot of people who I've talked with about this in private, and I'm looking into the camera right now, I'm talking exactly about you. Yeah. Thank you to the Lunduke Journal subscribers for allowing us to do this sort of coverage. Because you notice this topic does not get covered on ZDNet or The Register or or Ars Technica or Tom's Hardware or Gizmodo, any tech news outlet, because they are all some level of leftist. And if they were to talk about this topic, their sponsors would pull and their readers would start lighting them on fire because they advocate for violence. That's what they do. So because of you, because of the supporters of the Lunduke Journal, and go to lunduke.com for ways to support. Because of you, not only do we get to stay ad-free and big tech free and free of influence around any topic by all these tech organizations and foundations, we can actually cover these topics. It's amazing. It's amazing. It's all thanks to all of you. All of you did this. You are awesome. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, nerds and nerdettes across the inner tubes, I do declare, end broadcast.